We begin on the night of day 14, where we left off before. I know the text says day 15, but ignore that. He's obviously got the requisite skills and is just lacking the 2 family friends that he needs to get promoted. So obviously today is just going to be a normal day at work. Not a normal day at the house, though. As, we get our first burglar of the run 2 weeks in. Thieving bastard comes in and takes my stove, but because I was smart enough to put a burglar alarm in the house a few days back, he is accosted by police trying to exit, and I get about, we'll say $4,600. Almost $3,600 for the stove, and $1,000 for apprehending the criminal, which is actually a lot more than that stove was worth. It was only, that stove was actually not that expensive, so we got robbed and had a net gain. As I said before, just a normal day at work, no promotions because we lack the family friends. So after coming back from work, I decided to start working on that. Here we decided to call Rowan and invite him over. He declines. Next, I try to call Ian Towney, and he also turns me down. So after taking a cursory glance at the relationships panel, I decide to call Kelsey Towney and invite her over. She unfortunately works the day shift. So now I'm going to call Logan Towney and try to invite him over. Well, he apparently thinks fixing the casserole is more important than social interaction. So a little later, I decide to call Eldon Hick and invite him over. He finally accepts. 6 times the charms, I guess. And as he walks up, we prepare to go through the same sort of rigmarole that we normally do. Which is, of course, greet and then make food. Because it seems like the easiest way to have positive social interactions in this game is to discuss things over food. Now, I got a little confused for a second, but I guess I must have clicked have quick lunch instead of serve lunch, and just didn't catch it in time. I'm guessing I must have accidentally clicked have quick lunch instead of serve lunch. Later that night, after Eldon had gone home, I decided to call somebody else. This time I tried to call Kelsey Towney, since she wasn't available earlier in the day. She would theoretically be home by now, I would at least suspect. Which she was, but I just talked instead of inviting her over. Luckily for Jimbo, she's actually pretty personable and will have a phone conversation. Something that Eldon is apparently completely incapable of doing. Now, immediately after hanging up on Kelsey, we receive a phone call awarding us 800 simoleons. Now, nobody's going to turn down free money, and we especially need more because getting promoted up the ladder is going to be a very slow process, and I would like to upgrade the house at some point, probably in the next video. We take a quick nap, and wake up because of the phone, which we go just The morning of day 16, after coming home from work, I just have him take a shower and get some food. And after doing the dishes, I send him to bed. Later on that night, as he's getting a snack, we didn't really do much today because he slept most of the day away. I decided to have him call a neighbor again. This time I have him call Rowan, who is at work. Great! Can't have a conversation with him. So I decided to call Kelsey Towney because I know she is home around this time. That ends up being a very pleasant phone conversation, so I decided to call Eldon again. And of course, because he's a prick that doesn't like talking on the phone, that didn't go well. Day 17, we come home, and I decide to make some gnomes to build up a little extra cash. I end up making 4 of them and sending him to bed. After he wakes up, I of course have him call Kelsey Towney again, because it's later at night, so we can just talk. Pleasant phone conversation. Now, because I'm not trying to annoy the same 3 people on the phone, I try to call Mortimer God this time. Now, he's just like Eldon and refuses to speak on the phone, so... After setting the house on fire again, right before work, so he can't even eat before he goes to work, I just send him off because I've got a smoke detector and the fire department can deal with this. After coming home the morning of the 18th, I decide to call Eldon Hick and invite him over. He declines, so I decide to call Rowan and invite him over, who also declines. Thinking 3rd time's the charm, I decide to call Eldon again. This time he accepts, so I don't really know what he was doing that was so important 20 minutes ago. I sell off the gnomes for a grand total of $71, which is the most so far. After greeting Eldon, he decides to try to tickle me, which of course pisses Jimbo off, so we just go through the normal rigmarole of serving food, improving their relationship that way. A little later on, I invite him to play chess, which he actually accepts. Because it seems like talking while eating produces way more positive interactions than negative social interactions, the best thing to do, and the thing that I've been doing the whole time basically, is every time my guests go for a second plate, I make Jimbo go for a second plate. Because at least in this game, they can't get fat. And after a short nap, it's back off to work. After returning to work the next morning, it's just a matter of sitting around and improving some of his motives a little bit. And we're gonna call Rowan, because he's home in the mornings. After a pleasant phone conversation to help maintain the relationship, I decide to call Kelsey again, forgetting that she works in the morning. Later that night, I just get him fed and get his motives back up so he goes to work in a good mood. And then to kill some time before going to work, I have him make some more gnomes for some extra cash. Only 2 this time. Selling for a grand total of $38. So for want of not repeating myself consistently, we're kind of in a holding pattern right now as we try to build up these relationships with his neighbors to make the required 2 friends to get a promotion. A little bit later, we invite Eldon Hick over again, and he graciously accepts right away. We, of course, greet him and go through the normal process. And later have him join us in watching TV. Time to answer another phone call. And we get $450 free dollars. I've actually been having a really good run of luck with these random phone calls lately. Not so many prank ones. After some small discussion, we finally make a new friend.
Take that, depression!
And of course, we go straight to bed to build some energy back up before we go to work. The next day, we pay our bills.
Emotional damage!
And then get dicked over by the fact that relationships decay very fast in this game. So we call Eldon back over. Luckily he accepts right away because the relationship is pretty high. We of course serve dinner like we normally do. And of course after 2 sentences at the dinner table, he is once again our family friend. Now we're getting another phone call. Oh.
You dumb bitch! No shit!
No time to dwell on that revelation, though, as it's time to go right back to work. And the next afternoon, we get right to rebuilding the motives. Actually keeping them maintained in this case, as they're pretty high. After answering a random phone call, we call Eldon Hick and invite him over. If you look, he's once again not a family friend. I'm suspecting his side of the relationship slider is not as high as Jimbo's is with him, and that's why we keep running into this issue. But of course, after a few sentences over dinner, this is rectified. At this point, I decide that I'm going to keep Jimbo home from work tonight to build up this relationship as much as possible to the point that I don't have to constantly keep an eye on it. Because as you can tell, it dropped once again. The main issue we're going to have with maintaining a friendship with Eldon is you can't call him on the phone to maintain it, he has to be invited over. As he goes home, I get a phone call about missing work. Now, The Sims 1 doesn't really have weekdays in the same sense that the later games do, starting with 2. Every day is the same in The Sims 1. You go to work every day. If you have kids, they go to school every day. You can miss 1 day of work without being fired. Miss 2 in a row, well, you're done. As far as kids go, it just drops their letter grade a half point, I believe, or a third of a point. But anyway, after waking up in the morning, we decide to make some more gnomes for some extra cash. This time making 5. And go to call Rowan to invite him over. He graciously accepts. And I decide to sell off the gnomes for a actually quite nice sum. This time breaking into the triple digits with $124. As Rowan gets there, I of course greet him. We go straight to work, getting that relationship bar up, having a couple of random conversations. Of course, he didn't really like that one. But back into the routine. Discussion over lunch. Discussion over watching TV. And then going to work later on that night. Of course, for some reason, he changed priority and got bills before going to work, but, you know, never mind. Later that afternoon, after waking back up, I get his motives up and call Eldon. Remember, we have to keep calling Eldon over because just calling him to talk on the phone is not going to uphold his relationship because for some reason he just doesn't like talking on the phone. Of course, conversation over TV and dinner, as you can see by the dirty plates on the table there. Keep that relationship well maintained, and we're going to continue working on Rowan. I had to be kind of careful this time, because with Jimbo being super tired, he's not going to be very receptive to a lot of social interactions. I also had to change my camera angle, because having left so many plates on the dinner table, they set the serving plate on the ground. Of course, after shuffling around because the pathfinding screwed up, we end up washing dishes in the kitchen sink and breaking it. But it's back off to work as normal. At this point, I decide to buy a bar and have issues placing it. I buy a buffet table and a small stereo. Because my next idea is to basically stay home again from work and have a party. In throwing this party, I'm not really concerned with making friends so much as I am maintaining the relationships I do have. That includes with Eldon if he was to show up, and with Rowan. I also want to meet more people because at the end of this career track, I'm going to need a ass load of friends. And the mime shows up to the party because apparently it was terrible. I don't know, it looks fine to me. He didn't really do much either. He just walked up, kind of cried a little bit. I don't even know if he really pissed anybody off. But anyway, I ended up changing my mind and sending him off to work after a short nap. And after coming home in the morning, I invite Eldon Hick over to maintain his relationship. Which, of course, they do quite well over TV. This time, Jimbo gets tickled and actually doesn't get pissed off. But I see Eldon off because I need to sleep a little bit more and go off to work. This time I'm calling Rowan because I'm shooting to try to make friends with him today. A lovely conversation at the dinner table, followed by a little bit of shuffling around and getting pissed off because we both wanted to use the bathroom at the same time. Followed by some watching TV. And of course making a friend. But wait. Yeah, so there must have been one small negative interaction that caused that relationship to decay, but no matter because we made it back right before you had to go to work. I'm just spending a little bit of time queuing up some actions for when he gets home. This time I call Rowan just to talk on the phone with him because I know he's receptive to that, and it's a decent way to maintain the relationship score that I do have with him. This time I invite one of the townies that came to the party over because I need to kind of get a head start on making another friend because at the next promotion level I'm going to have to make another one because I'll need 3. So we just go through the routine at this point. They ended up watching TV together for a while. Everything went pretty well. But of course, no promotion. Now, if you look at his motive bars, hunger's meh, energy was meh. But the room score when you're outside is just absolutely miserable. So I real quickly decide to add some plants. Just to try to improve it a little bit. I even add one inside because, you know, why the hell not? I also throw a vase outside because why the hell not? But we're off to work again, and finally we get promoted. Now we're making $400 a day. Woohoo! Of course, $1,200 after you count the bonus. And at this point, I noticed I need some creativity points, so I buy an easel. Pretty much because he had to go straight back to work. After he gets home, I just have him paint. After gaining a few creativity points, I send him to bed. I make him get up to get a shower. And because his comfort is really low, I send him back to bed. Of course, we break the kitchen sink, so now we gotta call the repairman again. At this point, I just get him to finish that painting and sell it off because he's already got the needed creativity points. That's a lot of celebrating for only like $5, bud. Anyway, we call Rowan again to talk to him to maintain that relationship. And have some breakfast before going off to work. The next evening, we call Brooke again. Invite her over, and then we realize that she works at night. So, next time I call her, it's got to be in the morning like I typically do with Rowan. This time I have him paint a little bit more, not because he really needs the creativity skill at this point, but he needs a little bit more money. And once again, we're selling paintings for a pittance and celebrating crazily for it. After getting rudely interrupted from taking a crap, we get $600 free dollars, and I make him a quick breakfast. And he damn near misses the carpool because he decided to wash the dishes. We take a shower and spray some roaches and pay some bills. At this point, this video is pretty much winding down, so if you enjoyed it, please leave a comment, subscribe, and like, and I will catch y'all in the next video.